Today we will explore how humans will adapt to the extreme environments in the galaxy and start a new era of interstellar travel. If you come to this polluted planet that is very similar to Earth, here you can even breathe naked in the outer air. But don't be too happy. Just a few hours later, things will take a turn for the worse. The test results revealed that your blood has been contaminated with a tiny protein that is abnormally shaped. These proteins force changes in normal proteins in the body, caused a series of deadly chemical reactions. This shows that it is nearly impossible to colonize this toxic planet. Kim Stanley Robinson described this terrifying spatial expansion scene in his 2015 novel Aurora. And put forward a famous theory. Even in the Aurora effect, it seems that no civilization can survive in space. Because from a biological perspective, they simply cannot adapt to the space environment. Even with high-tech spacecraft and equipment, can't change this fate. So if we really want to explore the universe, you must master the key to evolution. Deeply transform our bodies. How do we need to change ourselves in order to evolve from Earthlings to creatures that can survive in the galaxy? NASA believes that humans want to conquer space. The first thing that needs to be addressed is the dual challenge of the dangerous gravity environment and cosmic radiation. Astronauts even go to a forbidden orbit like the International Space Station. It can also be influenced by these two factors. We've been so adapted to this planet, so that under zero gravity conditions, we lose bone mass and muscle mass rapidly. This can not only lead to fractures, it also triggers the cardiovascular system, overall degradation. This is why astronauts need to make fractures for hours a day in space. Although this is just a stopgap measure. Therefore, NASA is considering the use of gene therapy as a more advanced approach. So, in a nutshell, for long-duration spaceflight astronauts, we're going to give them specific genes through gene editing. Enables its bones and muscles to regenerate and recover better with less exercise. But even with this technology, our ingenious submarine system, even well-trained astronauts sometimes lose their sense of spatial orientation in zero-gravity environments. This problem still cannot be solved. This could lead to catastrophic errors in long-term missions. Maybe in the future, we should consider the scenario depicted by the Japanese writer Hayao Miyazaki in his space opera, Crowns of Stars. Members of the Empire who actively explored space had a special organ on their forehead for positioning in space. This organ is essentially the third eye, has 100 million photoreceptors, and it's connected to a specific part of the brain, responsible for processing spatial information. This adaptation to the microgravity environment through whole genome editing and in vitro replication technology implementation, this is very necessary. Natural childbirth in space is nearly impossible. The fetus is extremely sensitive to high levels of radiation. Adult DNA is also not protected against severe cosmic radiation. This means that within 10 years, cancer tumors could spread throughout the body. In addition, Martian settlers who lack a protective magnetic field are also at risk. Now, NASA's medical advisors are recommending a preservation technique. Insert genes that can quickly repair the bioelectricity of anti-corrosion devices into future colonists. But let's face it, it's like trying to reinforce and rebuild a burning house without putting out the flames. To make a breakthrough in creating lightweight materials with reliable radiation protection, we had to make some pretty miraculous decisions. As foreshadowed by American writer Frederick Bohr in his revolutionary science fiction novel, published in 1976, he was the first to describe how humans could adapt to Martian conditions by using cybernetic invasions. Protagonist Roger, Tovey gradually turned his vital body parts, including skin, bones, and even sensory organs, replaced with artificially enhanced equivalent effects. Roger turned out to be an insect-like robot, and no longer consider themselves human. In this form, he cannot return to Earth, because he can't breathe there anymore, and can suffer severe sensory shock. Imagine that. What sacrifices would humanity have to make to colonize the planet closest to us? But scientists remain confident. I believe that a way will eventually be found. By combining different approaches, fundamentally adapt humans to the harsh conditions of space. This is a futuristic scenario depicted in a science fiction game. Humans have not only colonized the entire solar system over hundreds of years, and carefully reinvent yourself. And it's not just about implanting little brain devices to augment the mind. This allows for better positioning and acceleration. In this rapidly evolving, in a world of intense competition for resources, purely solve the physiological problems caused by critical stress and radiation through medical advancements. That is to say, through viable and effective regenerative treatments. Even if we don't experience major changes like representation in empire or humanity, plus roles, the journey to the stars still requires great sacrifice. Mainly because the distance between Xingxi is so huge that it is unimaginable. For example, if the nearest star to the Sun, Proxima Centauri, is 4 light-years away, the Sun in Detroit is the size of a dollar coin. So Proxima Centauri is about the size of New York on one side, about 7-10 kilometers apart. At this ratio, we can't simply drive for a few hours. If the Sun were a Detroit dollar coin, you will become a tiny microbe near the coin. In your short life, you can't even leave this coin. Cities and spaceships are also restricted. Even accelerating to 10% the speed of light by conventional means is very difficult. This is why the European Space Agency is exploring the future of interstellar travel with the Happy Man project. The project aims to develop a first-generation spacecraft. It's like Kim Stanley Robinson's laser. It was designed so that 40,000 could reach their destination hundreds of years later. The journey is extremely dangerous, because those colonists born on board might reject the mission altogether and foment rebellion. So why not try something like Richard Hay Morgan described in his science fiction series? People who choose to move to distant stars can travel by changing the way they explore life. In these stories, space travelers are known as cortical heaps, essentially special storage devices, uploaded human rituals. These devices can be sent to ships that travel thousands of years, or transmit to any colony at speeds far faster than light. There, the traveler's consciousness will be re-downloaded into the battle and inserted into new organisms. A side effect of this approach, so you could end up spreading countless copies of yourself throughout the galaxy. Maybe we'd better turn to life extension. You don't think that in Frank Herbert's classic novel Dune, almost all of the characters are man-made horses that have been enhanced to live for centuries. This ability allows them to participate fully in the complex interstellar politics of the dunes. Extension of lifespan becomes possible, thanks to the efforts of genetic engineers. They may have learned how to stop chromosome degeneration in human cells. This significantly slows down the aging process. In the future, even without the artificial intelligence uprising, biomimicry of electronic systems could also become a necessity for interstellar travel. Even on current missions to Mars and other planets, detectors are constantly bombarded by high-energy cosmic archery. Sometimes it causes the recording computer to malfunction. On a journey of soundhole exploration, what if disaster prevention could be achieved with chemicals like those used by mutant navigators in aquariums? Future interstellar travelers will surely pre-order this solution from genetic engineers. But fictional worlds also warn us. These adaptations may be pushed to extremes in Evan's series. In this series, little vampires have conquered most of the Laundromat's galaxy, solved all survival problems through machine DNA editing and implantation technology. Hardly any restrictions. Hundreds of years later, Jupiters began to look very different from ordinary humans. It's like becoming an alien. But as the scheming expands, they found that the human brain simply cannot adapt to these changes. Many people are affected by the so-called Jupiter's disease. This is a mysterious genetic syndrome that causes madness and death. So far, all treatment common sense ends in failure. As a result, the Soviet Empire declined and isolate themselves from other ethnic groups of Western medicine clerks. But in my opinion, even in the face of such horrific examples, it is also unlikely to stop the human transformation process beyond Earth. Because like it or not, countless new nations will inevitably emerge in the vastness of space. This will lead to wars and monument races. Therefore, the biology of the human body has little chance of remaining in the same state as we are in the comfort of our home planet. Actually, back in the 80s, Brian Addis Neal, Rick Priestley, and Richard Habway has realized this and created a grim future in the table games and novel series called Warhammer. In this world, the human empire has carried out thousands of years of bloody conquest with the help of deeply remodeled Star Warriors. These warriors have been given 19 genes. The implants turn them into perfect killing machines and make up for the weaknesses of ordinary humans. Each soldier is implanted with a second heart. To enhance stamina and physical strength, their ribs fuse together to form a solid bone. Stimulates the body to grow and accumulate muscle mass through special glands, then implants. Until the warrior's height reaches nearly 2.5 meters. Such giants require a lot of energy. Therefore, through other implants, they can digest almost anything. In addition, intergalactic warriors can make up hundreds of hours of sleep. If you are seriously injured in battle, like a torn arm, The bleeding will stop immediately. The body will inject a lot of stimulants. In order to continue fighting in deadly situations, in interstellar warfare, it will be covered with a protective film and fainted, confused state until assistance is received. If the enemy manages to capture this killing machine, special glands in the prisoner's mouth will produce a strong acid. It can even dissolve steel. Essentially, this is a Frankenstein monster, specifically designed for combat. However, space warfare is not primarily an infantry conflict on the surface of a planet. It's fleet warfare in interstellar space. The advantage here lies in those who can control the battleship more skillfully. This means significantly improved coordination among the crew. The ideal option is to eliminate this connection. It's really part of the pilot. Top Jupiter engineers from another source have been working on this mission for centuries. They found a solution in an unexpected combination of 3 technologies. The main technology is hydrostatic capsules. The goal is a pilot's perception of his biological body and become the perfect knot between them and the ship. But to use this technology, a person must undergo dozens of painful surgeries to install a neural implant. So for this project, only the brightest residents from rural West were selected. They can run 60 kilometers without any reinforcement. But for pilots, unlike Star Warriors, intelligence is also crucial. Therefore, each candidate must have a science degree in a technical field related to space travel and combat. The ability to rapidly orient and make decisions has been tested over 2 years of training and flight events. Eventually, the pilots are fully integrated with their spacecraft. It feels like my own body. This allows them to perform complex maneuvers without hesitation. But it also undermines overall vulnerability. Subjectively feel pain. It must be tolerated without losing complete control. If the ship is indeed destroyed, then all this rigorous training will be for nothing. The real transformation isn't just about hydrostatic capsules. But with the help of 2 other key technologies, one is through cloning skin bodies. The second is to replicate thinking using cross-neural scanning technology. If the ship is damaged too much in battle, as a result, the integrity of the water purification ballast is destroyed. A pilot's brain will be sliced and scanned in seconds. To preserve all memories and the most crucial combat experience. Therefore, recently killed capsule pilots can be revived at the nearest space station. Prepare for revenge against future enemies. This made it nearly impossible to kill such a pilot. Just irritate them. All the players in Irwin County control these operating creatures. However, according to astronomers, to get as close to the status of the galactic people as possible, we don't just need to become super soldiers and immortal pilots, but also to adapt our bodies to other challenges on an unfathomable galactic scale that we face today. Only 7% and 28 billion stars in the Milky Way are of the same type as our Sun. According to recent estimates from Columbia University at Berlin, there could be as many as 6 billion Earth-like planetary systems near these stars. Although the Earth is only a tiny part of it. Although Venus is nominally a teardrop planet, located in the Sun's habitable zone, but obviously we wouldn't choose to live in such a hellish environment. Therefore, true galactic colonization is almost impossible. Only a few genuine mainland travels can become our new home. we need to broaden our options. Rudan Simmons in the Hyperion series. At least some of humanity left the Earth in ruins after a catastrophe. And not all refugees fleeing Earth seek refuge on the underlying exoplanet. Some people choose to carry devices on board their ships that have been genetically engineered and cybernetically enhanced. The true settlement of the Milky Way, hence the emergence of the superhuman race. They artificially modify their bodies, adapt to permanent residency on space stations such as Ludson's Orb. The body parts of these people are very slender. The legs almost become an extra opponent. Equipped with flexible fingers, can grasp objects in microgravity. At the same time, their main hand evolved a spectrum for easier sliding in phosphorus gravity and energy savings. Some people choose to cover their bodies with fur. It's almost like reverse evolution, particularly because they also use their robotic tails for extra limbs that cling to the wall in the middle of the woods. And here's the surprising part. The first round shape of this tail was tested by engineers at MIT. It can be controlled to bend and adhere to surfaces by wearing a vest that wears electronic sensors. In the future, our children may be genetically engineered to grow these tails much more easily. Especially considering that some people from Hyperion have gone further in adapting. Being called an angel doesn't even require a space station. They are fully protected by life armor similar to Earth beetles. Can withstand the effects of harsh radiation and vacuum, thanks to a design covered with huge wings. They can use any constant golden light as a source of energy. It's like a solar panel. And these wings also serve as antennae for biological radio transmitters on the head. This allows for ventilation even at great distances. Despite these and many other enhancements, make space angels ideal for living near any star in the galaxy. But on this scale, the most challenging tasks are not even adapting to the harsh conditions of space, but to maintain the appearance of some single civilization in the unfathomable caters to it. The only thing that can ensure this technological world is faster than light communication. The new one makes decisions possible by exploiting quantum and elemental effects. But for a representative of civilization, it is not enough to communicate tightly through channels faster than the speed of light. After re-engineering these creatures, if we call it the Grayman Collective, we're actually describing a collective with a hive ritual. He is able to maintain the mental integrity of individual members throughout the galaxy. The thinking of these individual members, like the nerve cells in our brain, although each individual nerve cell is very important, but they cannot survive on their own. This may explain why the three divine beasts don't need face-to-face communication. They don't show any faces, probably because they have been replaced by control sensors. This terrifying device enabled 30 people to live in the farthest reaches of the West. A galaxy full of deadly and dangerous anomalies, called the Abyss Death Space. So as to become a true galactic. So here's the question. Do we have to give up our humanity, not just our physical form? It's intrinsic. But our descendants may not need physical bodies at all. Future Cigars John Smart believes, even for genetic engineering, the challenges of space expansion are so great, so that humans will pursue digitalization beyond material form and consciousness. This brings to mind the main difference between carbon inversion and retrofitting. The flash drive that lies in consciousness does not need to be sent to other star systems, because it's not necessary. Instead, our digital descendants will live in virtual worlds. This world could be physically located anywhere in the galaxy. The sleepers chose the bridge department of the Evan family, not by piloting ships like capsule ships. It's about being immersed in a digital dream. However, after a collection of poems, a non-human consciousness spontaneously formed among them and began to exterminate the sleepers, take over their preserved bodies, and start living in the real world in the new store. So maybe transcendence is a dead end.